Welcome back to another edition of Hafeman Brothers Talking Packers. 12-3 Packers, champions of the North. 12-3. Ben, how are you feeling?
That was a bad song there, but it's a good lyrics, terrible melody.
Is it better? Is it better than? Hey, explain to me this real quick, because when I watched the Bears game with Nick, when the game was done and they had a victory, the song he plays on his phone is the "I don't want to work, I just want to bang." Why is that associated with Packers victories?
It's what they play when they score touchdowns in at Lambeau Field.
Okay.
You didn't know that?
Well,
that's been their touchdown song since the 80s or something. I can remember Sterling Sharp catching touchdowns, and then they play that song. I mean, that's been there for years and years and years. That's the song they play whenever they score a touchdown at Lambeau.
Okay.
I think we need to go to a game again here, you and me,
one
of these years.
It's been a while. Well, we are very excited about the Packers being 12-3 and winning the North and going to Minnesota and not just winning the game, but dominating the game and overcoming a whole bunch of mistakes in the first half to fully dominate the game. You take those mistakes away in the first half, the Packers were doing great. I mean, they could have, if they didn't have all those turnovers, this could have been a huge blowout. And I can't even remember the last time they played in Minneapolis like that. So that, to me, was a surprise, but it was just amazing to watch. I couldn't believe it.
I know, and like last week I said to Mo, I was like, there's no way the Packers are going to give you 7 turnovers like the San Diego or like the Chargers did. And then the first three things, like, first half they're fumbling the ball, throwing picks left and right. You're like, oh my God, what is going on here?
They were on pace for it.
I know. I was like, oh, I should have never said that, but hey, it worked out in the end. But I was like, good Lord. And the weirdest thing too was it wasn't like mistakes. I guess it was mistakes, but it was like the Vikings just did normal things that teams do. They, punched at the ball and, the guys weren't hanging out of the ball enough. Or, the interception Rodgers threw, he threw off his back foot. He didn't see the guy there coming from the other side of the field. And
yeah, that was a weird thing to see. And the fumble, like all the fumbles and drop passes. And we saw the drop passes the week before, and I'm sorry, drop passes just drive me crazy. I just don't understand it. It's the primary job for a bunch of these guys, and you drop passes like that those are all drive killers. Even if it's on second down, it's a drive killer. Like dropping a pass is it's basically almost it's worse than a sack. Oftentimes it's almost as bad as a turnover. It's a drive killer. So dropping passes really drives me crazy. So those happen, but then all the punch-outs and fumbles, and then you see a Rodgers pick, and it's like, holy crap. I mean, what is happening here in this first half? And I didn't think that they were going to overcome all that stuff. I just thought, oh, man, here we go again. We're in Minnesota. All these uncharacteristic things are happening, and I was getting worried. And somehow the defense just pushed them through, and the offense got their stuff together, and, man, what a result.
The defense was unbelievable, dude. Unbelievable. It was probably the most exciting game I've watched as far as, when you're looking there and you're like, the Vikings can't do anything. I mean, they look like the Packers against the 49ers. That's what they look like. Like Zadarius Smith was destroying dudes left and right. He had 5 tackles for loss this game. He had 3.5 sacks. He was just blowing crap up. Kenny Clark was beating his guy left and right. Dean Lowry was blocking passes and, making tackles. The other thing another thing that happened on one of the Vikings touchdowns in the third quarter, Fackrell got a holding penalty called on the left tackle. Otherwise, that would have been 7 points there, and the game might have changed.
Right.
But he dipped down and got around the guy, and the guy had to loop his arm around to keep him from getting to Cousins. And that was a huge play. I mean, sometimes it's things like that. It's not always the sack or sometimes it's just messing plays up or causing a guy to hold on you. Because let's face it, the secondary got beat on that play. but because Fackrell pushed it and got around his guy, there's a holding penalty called. It was a big, huge play. It changed the dynamic in that third quarter again. And if that would have happened, that was a huge score really fast. The Vikings maybe would have had a little bit of hope and came back in it. But because it didn't happen. The Vikings were just deflated, and that was the end of it.
That was such a bad hold, too. Like, he beat him, and then he held him with the jersey, and then he got past him. He even, like, grabbed his arm, like, hooked his arm after he'd held him twice. I was like, dude, there's no way they're going to miss this holding call. It's so bad.
Yeah. So those are just awesome play by the defense. And not only that, but smart play by the defense. I wanted to bring this up, and then I'll let you go after this. But after the game, Ryan Clark on ESPN showed a clip of the first meeting of the Packers and the Vikings, and it was the play where it was a play action play, and Cousins threw a deep bomb to Diggs for a touchdown. And on that play, Kevin King was covering Diggs, and he was on the right side of the defense, left side of the offense, and Jair Alexander was on the left side of the defense, right side of the offense. And the middle safety came down because there was a crossing route that came in front, and it was kind of like a zone, like a cover 3 zone or something. And the safety bit, and Diggs was lined up on Kevin King, and he just went straight deep, right? And Jair, who didn't have anybody to cover, tried to get over there in time to make a play on the ball, but he was just a little late. And that was the play where I remember you said something about how he went for the ball instead of going for something in that play, because he just got beat a little bit, and then it was a touchdown to Diggs. In this game, it was the other way around. Kevin King the Vikings were on the same exact play. And this time, Jair Alexander was covering Diggs, and Kevin King was the guy who had a free release and had nobody to look for. And King recognized the play and got back way deep before Diggs and Jair even got over there. And that was the play where King got the interception, because he was already there waiting for it, because he read the play. And it was awesome to see how Ryan Clark knew that from the previous game, and it was like right after the game on ESPN. And he showed it right there. He had both clips, and he had it ready to go. And it was pretty cool to see that, hey, you know what? These guys studied film. They made smart decisions. Kevin King caught the ball. Now, I didn't like the way how he's holding it in one hand, like all floppy, all weird. I wish he would have held a little more over to his body.
He almost dropped it before he finally secured it with that other hand, the right hand. Like, he had it in both hands, then almost dropped it, and then squeezed it with his right hand, and that's what actually kept him from dropping the ball. I was like, holy, because he almost dropped that. Because he has terrible hands. There's no denying that. He has terrible hands. Wow.
Well, hey, he made a great play on that one.
He did make a great play, but he's got to work on his catching.
Study. Yeah, it was film study and recognizing and getting back to help out. And those are things that, like, let's face it, in the past, the Packers would have blown coverage. They get fooled by stuff. They would make mistakes. And this time, they didn't get fooled. They read the play. They made a huge play, and that was another drive where the Vikings were moving the ball. That was where they had that. It was like 3rd and 18 or whatever, and they converted it earlier in that drive.
That was the one. So I will just say that was the one bad play by the defense. That was their one bad snap. Otherwise, the rest of the game, they were either really solid or spectacular. Made spectacular plays.
But the Vikings had some life there. That was the start of the turnaround. Was that interception by King. And it was because of film study and understanding what the Vikings were going to do. So I was really excited about that.
The thing I thought that was the start of the turnaround. The game was pretty tight at this point. The Vikings got good field position. I think it might have been off of one of the turnovers. The last fumble. I think it was the Adams fumble. And they had a 3rd down situation. They decided it was 3rd and 4. They were going to go for it on 4th down anyway, and they ran that trick play that they totally blew. They had Kirk Cousins open. Luckily, Amos didn't get caught in between and not deciding what to do. He was already too far upfield on the run play, so he just went after Diggs to try to make him throw it early. Because a lot of times you see guys in that situation, and then they start to backtrack and think, I got to get back and try to cover that guy because I vacated my area. But at that point, the best thing for you to do is try to put pressure on the passer, and he did that. And they totally blew that play, which was awesome. I was like, oh my gosh. Thank you so much. And then the next play call, the 4th down play call, was the double move to Adam Thielen, where Tremont just read it the whole way, got behind him, and just cut him off. Perfectly played by a salty veteran. And the weird part about that play, you need 4 yards. There was nobody in the middle of the field on that play. There was no underneath, no in-cutting route. easy 5-6 yard pass for Kirk Cousins. It was a guy on a double move on the outside, 30 yards downfield, or a couple other guys running deep in the middle or on the other side. So,
geez, that sounds like a Packer play call on fourth down.
Yes.
When that happened, I was thinking to myself, these guys are getting a little too cocky now. Like, even the play calls are getting cocky. You know what I mean? Like, they got turnovers. The third turnover the Packers gave them, they got 10 points off the first two. They were already in good field range. Why a trick play at that point, other than to just try to rub it in?
Right.
You know what
I
I
don't
mean?
get it.
And then because it didn't work, that I agree. That was like, it was kind of like in my mind, I was like, you idiots. You save trick plays for when you absolutely need something to happen.
I get you think, okay, well, we have fourth down because we're going to go for it anyway. But then that fourth down play better be golden. Like it better be something you can do with your eyes closed or in your sleep. So I would say those two calls were the turning point in the game because they did nothing with that possession, and they had a golden opportunity too, and they didn't. And primarily it was because the third and fourth down play calls were just simply stupid, just dumb. And that opened the window for the Packers, and then other things steamrolled from there. That's the way I felt about the game. We have to give some major credit here about the things the Packers did differently. And these are things we've been calling for, other people have been calling for, but we saw a heck of a lot more 85 than 80 in this game at the tight end spot, which even though you didn't throw him the ball a lot, he was on the field. He was doing those wham blocks. He was leading the charge on running. He was doing some more pass protection. Bob Tonyan was, I think he got the most snaps from tight end. Mercedes might have been close, but he was in there a lot, and that's what the Packers, I think, know they need moving forward. Sprinkle in a little Jimmy Graham, sure, okay, fine, but he shouldn't be getting the bulk of the snaps. And then we also saw primarily when we had three receivers, Lazard, Kumaro, and Devontae Adams get the majority of the snaps with a little sprinkle of MVS and Geronimo a little more than him. And I think they finally figured all that out. This has to be the pecking order. This is what we're going with moving forward. And it all worked really, really well for that offense. And then when MVS and Geronimo were in the game, I felt like they were more productive.
Since we're doing receivers, I'll say MVS, we're going to give him some love here. He had the huge block on Aaron Jones' 50-some-yard touchdown run. He also had a great catch where the guy covering him was like 7 yards off him, and Rodgers recognized it. And I don't know if it was the play call or if he just threw it over there as like a runner and just decided to throw it over there or what. But MVS was ready for the ball, caught it, and got 7 yards on first down. It's another one of those fat girl type things, right? Make a play here or there, but it matters. That block sprung Aaron Jones for 50 yards and a touchdown. That's huge. A 7-yard gain on first down, that's huge. I mean, those are things that seem like very small, but they're needed at key moments. So they're talking about targets. Here we go. Last week, Devontae, 13 targets, right? This week, Devontae, 16 targets. Oh, my gosh. But he caught 13 balls this week. As of last week, it was 7 out of 13. This week's 13 out of 16. But here's the difference. Last week, the closest guy was Geronimo with 4 and Jimmy Graham with 4. This week, Geronimo only had 2 targets. Jimmy Graham had 1 target and 1 catch, and it was a good catch, but he fumbled. But anyways, the second guy this week, Allen Lazard, with 9 targets in this game. He only had 5 catches, though. But 3 of those catches were on third down and continued drives. So they were key third down completions where Rodgers went to him in the second half. I think it was almost all of them in the second half. That kept the offense on the field, kept the defense off the field. That was the other thing. The Packers' time of possession was like insane because they had so many turnovers. And then in the second half, they kind of kept drives going that the Vikings had the ball like not even at all hardly in the whole game. So that was another thing that was awesome. But so the targets a little bit more, not evenly distributed at all, but at least there's a clear number 2. It's Allen Lazard. We all know that. I'm worried that teams are going to start double teaming Devontae and trying to take him away. But I do also see LaFleur does a good job of lining him up kind of all over the place, which helps to get him open, I think.
Mm-hmm.
There was also a Devontae quick screen where Geronimo blocked for him, did a great job. And that's a way better play than Devontae blocking for Geronimo, which is what we saw earlier in the season.
Right.
and so that's another thing that they changed that were like, okay, thank you. Give the guy to the shifty guy and let the other guy block. Okay, sweet, like it.
Now I was looking this up because I've been paying attention to the talk about Defensive Player of the Year or any of that stuff. But now, after the last several weeks and some of the production that's come with it with Za'Darius and then this big stage Monday night, people are talking about him as a possible Defensive Player of the Year, which the last Packer to win that was Charles Woodson. And the last one before that, I think, might have been Reggie White. And before that, I have no idea. So this doesn't happen very often for the Packers, for sure. But Za'Darius Smith didn't even get voted into the Pro Bowl. And he might be the Defensive Player of the Year in the league. Now, that would be some serious irony and would be some pretty good justification for him and also make him probably feel pretty good. I know he was quoted after the game saying he doesn't care about the Pro Bowl. He wants a Super Bowl. But he deserves the recognition, and he might get the Defensive Player of the Year. If he comes out and dominates against the Lions too, I think he might wrap it up.
He's just what this team needs. They need a guy to just kind of like, get everybody fired up and ready to go. And after the game, like there was an interview right after the game with him and Preston, and Za'Darius is like got tears coming out of his eyes because he's so happy about, getting the NFC North Championship. And like he couldn't even talk. He was so messed up. And Preston had to kind of take over and start talking. And so it's one of those things where those guys, they're a really good compliment for each other. And it's crazy to think that all you had to do was sign a couple good guys and it changed the defense completely. Like, why did we do this years ago? You know what I mean? Just get a couple of good players on the team. Oh, that's a thought.
It is mind-boggling, though, a bit that he was just a part-time player in Baltimore for his whole for 4 years. I mean, not just part-time his first year or two. I mean, he was still kind of getting about 50% of the snaps or so last year. So, I mean, credit to the Packers to see the talent and everything else that could be there if he was a full-time player. It's not like he's necessarily being more productive than he was in his time with Baltimore. He's just getting more opportunities, and man, he's cashing in.
It's crazy to me that this guy is out there and nobody else went after him. I don't know. It's crazy because he's obviously a dynamic physical specimen with a lot of passion and heart and just wants to be awesome. And that's exactly what he is just awesome right now. And I sure hope he keeps doing it.
And we're back with Viking Moe for the second week in a row. Eric Gardner, this time from a different location. The game was so bad Monday night you had to leave the state of Minnesota. Is that correct? Please corroborate.
I'll just say that, yes, I left the state. My reasons are my own.
Sorry, we don't want to give you too hard of a time, but you are here to give us the Viking perspective because we're talking about that game from the Packers perspective, and that's a good place to be. What is the Viking take on what happened Monday night, just before Christmas?
It's hard to say. I mean, I think early on, at least, the defense played pretty well. Obviously, they got forced turnovers. They held the Packers to 9 points in the first half. It probably would have been less if the offense could have mustered more than like 2 first downs. And I think as the game wore on, the defense wore down. I mean, 7 first downs in the whole game. It's the lowest since they played back in the Met Stadium, I think. So your defense is going to wear down when they're on the field that much. I think that's what happened. And the Packers finally kept running the ball like they should have probably the whole game. And finally busted some big runs. But, I mean, from Minnesota's perspective, basically it came down to not making plays when they were afforded them.
Well, but don't you think, I mean, the key to the game really was the defensive line? I mean, the pass rush of the Packers, the Vikings could not handle the Packers D-line in the run game or the pass game. And that's what, I mean, Kenny Clark was dominating, Za'Darius Smith was dominating, and even guys like some of the guys you don't hear a lot from otherwise. Dean Lowry had penetration. It seemed like the Vikings offensive line really, really struggled.
They seemed to that game, and I know that they didn't have Dalvin Cook, they didn't have their backup, Alexander Madison, and you think if they have a guy like that, that maybe things might be different. But I still didn't see a ton of running room in general, and I think, and maybe they can key off that a little bit more. I think that, especially, I like Mike Boone as a runner, but not maybe as polished as Cook is in the passing game. So when Cook's in, it's not like back in the day with Adrian Peterson. When Peterson's in the game, they're probably not going to pass, right? They're going to hand the ball. Similar situation when Boone was in there versus Abdullah, who's more of the third down receiving back. So I think they keyed on that a little bit more too, but there just wasn't a whole lot of running room, and they couldn't get the play action to work. They couldn't get anything to work, and I think Cousins had a few plays where he had guys open and rushed the throw or missed the throw, and those things just started, like I said, the best term is they just snowballed. They just missed those little plays. Instead of 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3, you got 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, and that's where taking a longer drop and pass rushers can just tee off.
All right, enough of this Viking talk. As a Viking fan, what scares you about the Packers? What did you see in that game? Some of the things we talked about last week? They targeted Devontae Adams 16 times. He caught 13 of them this time. Aaron Jones, like I said, when he's on turf, he's a monster because he just once he sees the crease, and it's like he's gone. So Darius Smith all over the place, destroying things.
I need to bring this up because I find this really interesting, and hopefully you will too. The Packers' offense is ranked like 21st in the league. Their defense is ranked 18th. So that's in yardage. So if you break it down, their passing offense is in the bottom half of the league, the rushing offense bottom half of the league, same passing defense bottom half, rushing defense bottom half of the league. So in terms of scoring, the only thing that they're in the top half of the league is their scoring offense is 14. So just barely above in the top half. Their scoring defense is 18, the bottom half. So you have this team whose ranking and scoring and everything is in mediocre or worse zone, yet they're 12-3. So
yes,
that happens because they're number, I think, 2 or 3 in turnover ratio. So if some people will argue, certainly you force turnovers, pressure can help force turnovers, but sometimes turnovers are a bit of luck, right, as well. But that's been the difference, and so my question is, can the Packers keep this up? Really, and people have seen it tangible. The offense is still a problem. It's not the efficient it should be. They should actually run the ball a lot more than they do, in my opinion, and might be more successful. But the defense has some players. Now, I'll say this. You asked what am I afraid of when I think about the Packers. I think Zadarius Smith. I think that's a guy who, along the same lines as a Khalil Mack, is a game wrecker. And if you don't, the thing that I guess upset me, especially lately, is how do you not just at least chip the guy with a back or tight end, just something to slow him down a little bit. Just all that does is give you an extra second. It doesn't really take away anyone else from their route, and you chip him at the line and just to slow him down a little bit because he was a game wrecker in that game, and I think the biggest difference.
Aaron Jones, Zadarius Smith, destroyed. They destroy every week. They're the heart of the offense and the heart of the defense. They're the things that make the Packers go. End of the story. The reason why Zadarius Smith has now had a great game on against the Vikings is exactly what Mo just said. Vikings were dumb. They should have double-teamed them. They should have chipped them. They should have done something, and they didn't do it the whole game. They let them destroy them over and over again. Smart offensive teams are going to do something different. They're going to realize it and make in-game adjustments. Vikings didn't do that. I'd be really disappointed if I was a Viking fan. I give Mo a lot of credit for coming on the show after that crappy game and putting up with us, and we're pretty nice to him so far. But I'm just saying, like, I wouldn't want to. I'd be like, I wouldn't even want to show my face after that crappy game because the Vikings offense made zero change. They didn't do anything. It was like the Packers gave them the game. They're like, hey, you want the ball? Here you go. Hey, you want the ball? Here you go. Hey, you want the ball? Here you go. And still the Vikings didn't do anything with it. And I'll say this too. Those turnovers that the Packers had, those were all great plays by the Vikings.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
the Harrison Smith punch out on Devontae, great play. We don't see the Packers ever do that. I don't know why. Harrison Smith should have been a Packer. That's all I can say. But he made a great play there. All I know is this. the Packers, their offense has potential to do things. Aaron Rodgers is still there. And Rodgers just got to get back.
From an outside perspective, I don't know if it's him or if it's the receivers, or maybe he doesn't just maybe trust the other receivers, so he's going down his walks to trust him. And the other guys are pretty young, and that Lazard, I think, is a pretty good up-and-coming player and things, but I don't know, he caught one and then fumbled one that game. And he always holds the ball one time, right, and takes sacks and things, which, he protects the ball, which is great. And that's a big reason why they had the turnover differential they do. But there's times where you think like he would just let it fly, but there's no one out there that maybe he trusts enough to do that. And that's not something you're going to really fix in the middle of the season unless you have him turn around and hand the ball off to Aaron Jones a little more often. They might have to lean on that a little bit more than they leaned on Aaron Rodgers like they have in the past.
The other thing I was going to ask you, I thought Kendricks getting hurt was a huge thing for the Vikings defense. Not having him out there that whole second half, because the Packers ran the ball okay in the first half, but once he wasn't there to kind of roam the middle, I think the Packers' offensive line actually, like a lot of those touchdown runs, they actually got downfield a little bit. You know how long he's out for you guys, or is he coming back, or was it just a little thing, or what happened?
He was on the limited list, so we'll have to see. They're hoping it's not too serious, but I think they'll probably shut him down for the last game, so it doesn't mean anything anyway. But I do agree, and I think, and Zimmer even mentioned it this week too, that long run by Aaron Jones was just a misfit, and that was a play that Kendricks was out for. I think Barr was out for that because he got hurt a little bit too. He'll be fine, but and they had two backup defensive. I mean, they almost were playing against a second string defense on that run and just misfit it.
I think the biggest key for the Vikings is less trash talking, more football playing. And they'll be better.
Was there a lot of trash talking?
Yes. Oh man,
yeah,
when they were getting those turnovers early in the game, a bunch of the cut shots, Anthony Barr's going off, other guys are making it. Oh man, they're just whooping it up on the sideline. Yeah. Oh yeah.
There's the interview Aaron Jones said after he fumbled, and it was Barr who caused him to fumble. Barr said to him, "Lights are too bright. Get off the field."
Oh.
And then after that, Jones said, "Yeah, I was like, I'm taking it too in the rest of this game. I'm not screwing up anymore." And he got on the sidelines. He talked to all the guys. He's like, "I'm not fumbling anymore. Let's go for it." So Barr got him fired up. After Diggs caught that touchdown, which, by the way, was a great pass by Kirk Cousins. It was an amazing pass because Jair Alexander was all over his butt. There was like a window of like 1 inch to get that ball in there, and he did. And Diggs caught it. As soon as he caught it, he turned around and said some crap to Jair Alexander, and I'm like, well, whatever. Diggs, you cocky little punk.
He didn't do nothing after that. Nothing.
And he did nothing. And then Thielen did nothing. Okay, we don't want to get on Moe here. We don't want to make him feel bad. Well, I like Moe. He's my friend. I don't want to make him sad.
We have to let him know the effect that his team's trash talking took, though. It affected the game.
I think it's good to get fired up after a big play, but trash talk, I mean, why? You don't want to give people bulletin board material right during the week, and you don't want to do it in the game either. I mean, some players play worse when they're ticked off, maybe, but not most of them. So that's disappointing. I think Zimmer's probably not going to like to hear that too much either. So hopefully you can get them back in line here, but and try to figure things out here going to the playoffs.
So Eric, we wish you luck in the last week of the season and the playoffs until you see the Packers, if you do.
Well, that would be great. I'd look forward to a game like that. And playoff time, anything can happen. It's just good to be in there. And it looks like, maybe you guys can tell me, but maybe do the Packers already have a first-round bye locked up now or not? Is that not necessarily true yet?
No, if they lose and the Saints win, they would be bumped back to number 3.
Okay.
Yep,
so they're not going to lose to Detroit. Detroit's playing a third-string quarterback, and no one cares about Detroit, so they're not going to lose to Detroit.
They've had struggles in Detroit. They have had struggles in Detroit over the years, and recently.
Well, they lost to Detroit earlier.
There's a story out there. There's a car dealership there's a car dealership in New Orleans, and they're going to give the quarterback of the Lions a truck if he can beat the Packers, because the Saints want to buy. No, it's true. There's a car dealership who said they're going to give a truck to the quarterback of the Lions, the third-string quarterback of the Lions, if he can lead the Lions to a victory over the Packers so the Saints can get a bye.
And you know that guy's still driving his
incentive is there.
Right, because you know that guy's still driving his crappy college car because he's a third-string quarterback, so he probably didn't even make enough to buy a truck.
Good idea.
Dang, smart. All right, Eric.
There we go. Mo finally laughed. It took him a long time to laugh today.
We were way too serious. I don't know what happened today.
Well,
we're all business.
You can understand that.
I don't want to make him feel bad, so I've been trying to be as nice as I can, and it's really hard, let me tell you.
I can tell. I mean, Ben's really in pain trying to be this nice, and I can appreciate that. I can appreciate the effort. And I'm a little somber. I'm sorry I haven't laughed more at your terrible jokes, but usually I'm a little more jolly. But it is what it is. I still appreciate you having me on and letting me vent a little bit. And but hopefully we get to meet again in the playoffs and have a little more exciting game.
All right, Eric. Enjoy Florida.
All right, thanks. I'll do that.
Viking Moe, everybody. You know what the Packers remind me of right now? They remind me of the teams that knocked out the Packers' best teams in recent years. Remember, in 2011, the Giants weren't necessarily a great offensive juggernaut. They weren't dominating defensively, but what did they have? They had a great pass rush. And that impacted the Packers, and they were opportunistic. They forced turnovers, and they had a great pass rush. And that is ultimately what did the Packers in 2011 in the playoff game. That's what this Packers defense is like. And the offense, yeah, is it lighting things up? No, but it's effective with good running, and at times their pass game looks good. At times it struggles a bit, but it's good enough. You put those two things together, and you're running the ball effectively, you can be really, really hard to beat. You don't turn it over. That's the other key thing. So they got to not do what they did in the first half of this game anymore, but the rest of it, great. Love it.
Hey, it's time for the Nito stat of the week.
Okay,
I
let's do it.
forgot about it last week.
Oh.
I got 2 Nito stats. First Nito stat is kind of piggybacks off of what you just said. This year, the Packers have 3 wins and 0 losses when Aaron Rodgers does not throw a touchdown. Did you know that?
That is so weird.
That is crazy. And it just, think about that. Aaron Rodgers did not throw a touchdown, and the Packers have won all 3 of the games that he did not throw a touchdown in. The record before that, of all of Rodgers' entire career, when he does not throw a touchdown, the Packers have 4 wins and like 12 losses or something. So this year is just, it just speaks to how the running game and the defense are the heart of this team right now. The other thing that speaks to the running game as the heart of this team, Aaron Jones, are you ready for this? The only Packer player in the 100-year history of the Green Bay Packers to have a game with 150 yards rushing in a season and 150 yards receiving in a season.
Jeez.
That is nuts. and yet he's not in the Pro Bowl.
Right.
He leads the NFL in touchdowns, but he's not in the Pro Bowl.
And he
leads the NFL in rushing touchdowns, yet he's not in the Pro Bowl. He's 1 touchdown away from tying Ahman Green for the Packer all-time touchdowns in a season record of 20. He's got 19. He's 3 away from getting tying the rushing record because Jim Taylor's got 19 rushing touchdowns in one season, and that was in like 2 less games. So, they ran the ball all the time though back then. Still, it's pretty crazy to think that Aaron Jones, I'll say this. I'm going to leave this into you because I'm going to let you go off after this. In the game, Booger McFarland kept saying, on both of Aaron Jones' touchdowns, he was like, and he's not even touched, and he wasn't even touched on that 50-yard run. And I'm like, he wasn't touched. That's true. Aaron Jones has the ability to cut on a dime, to move sideways and still keep going forward. It's really weird, but he's like the craziest slasher of all time. He's got super speed. He wasn't touched because nobody can catch him on either of those touchdowns. Nobody could catch him. They would both run all the way to the side. The defense is running to the sideline, and they're not expecting him to be that fast. The next thing you know, he's already past them. If that was any other running back on those exact same plays, it would have been tackled. But Aaron Jones has this crazy speed and moving sideways, but not really moving sideways. He's still moving forward, and it's like, I don't know how to explain it. He doesn't get touched because he's awesome. Don't get me wrong. The blocks are good, too.
Right. Right.
But it takes a special player to get 19 touchdowns in a year. It's not just because, the offensive line is great or the receivers are blocking, and that is important. But that'll let you go into your Booger McFarland, because I'm getting sick of that guy too.
I will say, but before I jump on Booger, Louis Riddick is a guy that I kind of think does a pretty good job analyzing and looking at things. He's been a front office guy. He's on ESPN. But he had talked about Aaron Jones, a few weeks back. They were asking him about him, and he was saying, a lot of people just missed on this guy, but he is the real deal. He does everything well. And one of the things he talked about is his vision. And not all running backs have the vision to not just see what's there, but to see what, if you press a little bit further into a guy because you're so confident knowing that you can move laterally to get away, something else can open up. So exactly what you talked about. Like if that was Jamal Williams on the touchdown run that he had, if Jamal Williams is carrying the ball on that long touchdown run, same blocking, everything else is the same, Jamal Williams is going to get a nice gain, but then he's going to run into, get tripped up or run into the guys right in front of him there because it looks like that's really what's there, and that's it. But Jones, and he even talked about this, he said the coach tells him to press the B gap or press the, press the hole a little more. And if you press it a little more and you have that ability to sneak out, which he does, big stuff like that opens up as long as guys hold on to their blocks just a tick more, just a half second more. And that is one of his biggest assets, the vision and the confidence to be able to do that stuff marrying together, and that makes him super effective. And he's a find, and we already talked about earlier this year, they should lock him up, get him under a long-term contract now. Don't wait another year. Like, pay the guy, pay him a little more other than what he's making as a fifth-round rookie contract pick, because he's definitely outplaying his contract. So show him a little love by paying him a little more and signing him to extension before you have to, and you'll get him cheaper in the long run, and you can keep him on the Packers for another good, 3-4 years. But Booger McFarland, I don't know if I want to go off on this anymore because I'm feeling so many good vibes about how well the Packers played, and this Booger thing just makes me mad. But I will say this. Booger McFarland has a Packers bias. He is anti-Packers. Almost as bad as Troy Aikman is anti-Packers, and you can tell. Booger McFarland, we don't have to listen to him too much because he's Monday night, and we don't see Monday Night Football all the time. And for whatever reason, 8 games a year, we get the Aikman-Buck combo on Packer games. I have no idea why, but we do, so we hear those guys way too much of the time. Anyway, the Booger McFarland deal is, here's an exact case in point. He's talking about early in the game, before things, this game against the Vikings was even kind of playing out, he's talking about Aaron Rodgers, and he's talking about Kirk Cousins, who coming into the game had almost identical passing stats. They had almost the same amount of yards, almost the same amount of touchdowns. Cousins had like one more touchdown, but a couple more picks. Cousins' rating was slightly better than Rodgers. Okay, but very, very comparable. And he's talking about Kirk Cousins. And he's like, Kirk has been playing great. He's having a hell of a year. Blah, blah, blah. All this sort of stuff. Then he's talking about Aaron Rodgers. And he's like, yeah, and that's the problem with the Packers offense. Aaron Rodgers has just been, he's been okay, but he just hasn't been that good this year. They're almost exactly the same. Almost exact. They are as identical after 14 games as you could be when you're looking at quarterback statistics. Yet one guy is having a hell of a year. The other guy's, he's doing okay, but he's been off. He's not great. He's not doing that great. Give me a break, man. And then
the thing is, dude.
No. Hold on.
Yeah, keep going.
One other thing is, if you're an analyst and you're a guy who watches tape, and I'm sorry, but you have to factor this in. You have to. If this is your job and you're being paid a lot of money to analyze this stuff, then watch the tape of the games. Don't just watch the highlights and then spout off and say this crap. You're watching the tape of the game, especially if you got a teams coming up that you are broadcasting and doing that game at that level. You're watching the last game they played. You're watching the last couple games they played to get a feel for how they've been playing. And you would see 4 drop passes in the game against the Bears. 4 more drop passes in this Vikings game. Some other drop passes, some other things that are definitely impacting Aaron Rodgers' statistics versus how he's actually playing. Because I felt in the game against the Vikings, he played a pretty darn good game. Yet the statistics will say 26 out of 40, 216 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. That does not look very good, right? But if those guys don't drop the ball, if those guys don't fumble the ball on all those early drives, the Packers probably dominate that game. And on top of it, the difference this year is that the Packers, the reason why Aaron Jones has so many rushing touchdowns is because the Packers are running the ball in the red zone this year, which many other years they didn't do that. So you had hardly any rushing touchdowns and mostly passing touchdowns. With all those rushing touchdowns, that means Aaron Rodgers doesn't get, I know this seems really simple, right? This seems like very logical and simple stuff, like something so stupid someone should not say it, but apparently I have to say it for a bunch of these broadcasters. When you have a running back with that many rushing touchdowns and you have another running back that has some rushing touchdowns, there is no way you can have that many passing touchdowns. So the things you look at are how many interceptions does he have? How many touchdowns does he have? And there, he's doing great. So get off the guy's back. I'm so sick of this crap. I'm so sick of people saying that he's not playing well because he is playing very well in a brand new offense, and he's not throwing a fit that he doesn't have 40 touchdowns. He's going with it. He's good. He's celebrating with the team after Aaron Jones scores a rushing touchdown.
Not only that, there's been a couple of Aaron Jones rushing touchdowns where it was a called pass and Rodgers switched it to a run because he recognized that, maybe it was better for a running play at that point. And then Jones scores a touchdown on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's fine. The thing is, people are used to Aaron Rodgers throwing for 1 million yards and this and that and blah, blah, blah. But the reason why he did that is because he had to. There were times where the Packers have 3 rushing touchdowns by their running backs the entire year. I mean, sometimes even less than that. And there are times where Aaron Rodgers led the team with rushing touchdowns with 2 or something, It's just, this team is built to win, and it's built to win games in Lambeau Field, which is where the playoffs are going to happen. And if the Seahawks can beat the stinking 49ers, and the Packers can beat the Lions, then all the playoffs are going through Lambeau Field. It's a different atmosphere. Even Rodgers, his body language is different. Like, that's the best part about this team is Rodgers he's okay with being like, hey, I don't have to throw for 5 touchdowns and 400 yards and all this other crap. As long as we're winning games, and that's what they're doing. And it's the most exciting thing is that they're winning games. Everybody's kind of like, and that's the other thing, like everybody's part of the team. Instead of in the past when they win games, everybody's like, well, Aaron Rodgers is doing it all by himself. There's no anybody else on the team, apparently. When it's not true, but that's all they would do is just say, oh, he's carrying him on his back and blah, 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 flip-flop. And it's kind of like, that's disrespectful to the other guys on the team,
Right.
And in this team, it's like everybody is part of the team. Everybody's doing awesome. The blocking's awesome. The running's awesome. You just got to clean up some drops here and there, and then also look about, try not to give up big plays and look out for tight ends. If you can fix those things and keep them going, oh, dude, I'm starting to feel it. I don't want to say it, but I'm starting to feel it.
This is the type of team that can do it. I mean, I'm telling you, like we loved, it was great, right? That, and everybody's, questioning the Packers and they're this and that, and they're not good enough here, or they're not good enough there, or they're not that great in any statistical category, but, they're 12-3 and, no one's sold on them. The 2011 season was a lot of fun where they were just blowing everybody out and scoring touchdowns left and right and winning all these games by huge margins and all that. That's fun to watch. But you saw how that ended. Okay? This team's not going to end that same way. If somebody beats them, it's going to be a close game, but they're going to have a chance. And if you give me a game where you have a chance and you have Aaron Rodgers to rely on or lean on in those key moments that you need him, I will take that anytime. over the teams they've had in the past. And he can still do it because in this game against the Vikings, yes, they were running the ball effectively in the second half when they started to build their lead, but he also made a lot of key throws on third down to keep drives going. And he made some great throws to Adams, Lazard, some others. A lot of those in-cutters that we haven't seen as part of their offense for years, he made them. And that's all he needs to do. And if he doesn't pull it off one time, he doesn't have to feel the pressure like, oh man, now we're screwed, because he's got those guys on the other side of the ball that are picking it up. So I love it. This team's good. We're feeling good about our Packers. One more game to go. Now Detroit. I don't love going to Detroit. I know the whole story and narrative. Detroit's on their third string quarterback. The Packers should blow them out. All this stuff. I totally get it. But they've had these rough trips to Detroit. And I just, goofy things have happened, like Mason Crosby, missing 5 kicks or whatever a couple of years ago there, and some other just weird stuff happens in Detroit. Even times they've won there, it's not been easy. So I still feel a little iffy about this game. But if they win it, they have a chance of the number 1 seed, and definitely they get a bye, which would be huge for them. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on this game with Detroit coming up?
The Packers should win the game, right? It should make sense that they win the game. And I think they can see what's ahead of them. They know what they can get if they play hard and win. So all they got to do is, if they get up right away, you know what I mean? I think they'll just knock the Lions into submission and they'll just fade away.
It would be great to get up big and then be able to get guys out of the game earlier to give them a little rest and things like that. But we'll see. We'll see how it all goes. Now, the sad part is, if they finish up strong, then for the Hafeman family Christmas, there's no Packer game that weekend because they'd be on a bye.
That's okay.
But we'll take it.
That means we get to spend more time together in the festivities.
That's true.
Because otherwise, if the Packers were on and it was a playoff game, we'd all be nervous. And then if they lost, it would ruin it for the rest of the time we're together. So this way we'll just be happy knowing that the Packers would have a bye.
All right. You've talked me into it. I'm okay with it now. All right,
good.
Here we got to finish.
Yeah, we got to get going.
I almost forgot. You, please, select the super fan this week.
Me?
Yes. I felt a burden selecting all the super fans so far.
Yeah, I know. Well, you took all the only fans we have. There aren't any left. Way to go.
Oh, come on. There's plenty of them.
You went and gave us. Okay, I'm going to do this because I don't know if we officially made him the super fan last week or not. You just kind of like, super fan. So I'm just going to say it. Okay, super fan. You mentioned him in the Viking preview with Moe, but we're going to give him a little more love this week. It's a guy who always leaves a comment. It's a guy who always got your back when you needed him back in college. Always in a good mood. Whenever he meets somebody, he makes a friend. That's why he stood up in 17 weddings over his years, including mine. It's the one and only Jason Eckes, super fan of the week, good buddy, awesome guy, crazy Packer fan, and was my roommate at like 3 or 4 different occasions in college because I was in college a long time, and so was he. Can you give him some love with the... There it is. Ooh. That one left a stain.
Feel a little saucy on that one. Jason Eckes, we kind of gypped him on the Viking preview because we don't know how many people caught that one. It was a bonus and all that. So, yeah, it's fine to give Eckes a little more love this week. And, yeah, you're right. I mean, here's what I think. I think we like this guest thing. I think maybe we should allow a few more of our faithful listeners and friends to come on board for a show if they're interested. And so maybe Eckes can do a playoff show with us. Maybe I haven't talked to Nick about it. I don't know if he'd say enough words, but sometimes he'll have something to get you riled up or me riled up, so he might be up for it too. So we'll reach out to those guys and see if we can spice up our playoff editions with some extra guests again, just kind of keep it rolling there. So
I think that'd be a good idea. I
Yeah.
think it'd be a good idea to get those guys in, one of them, and then they have to win, and then we get the other one in, and then they have to win, and then we got to get somebody else in.
And then by the end,
they got to keep winning.
The real point is, you don't need to listen to just us all the time, because we get it. It's not always that great or exciting, but if we bring some other people in, maybe it's a little more exciting and fun.
You should do it.
Okay, we'll
Sounds
do it.
good.
All right. The Packers made it a Merry Christmas for us. Thank you very much on Monday night.
Yes.
And we hope to make it a happy New Year on Sunday, because, man, a Packer victory, 13-3 finish to the regular season, a first-round bye, and maybe even the number 1 seed would be, wow, something no one would have thought of, and something that we all would be pretty darn excited about here in the state of Wisconsin. So that's what we're going to shoot for, Brother Ben. Thanks so much again this week for hanging out. Glad we could catch up with Viking Moe, too, and work him in. He was a class act, like he always is, so we love having him on. And we'll work in some other friends of Hafeman Brothers in the weeks to come as the playoffs continue on here in this 2019 season. We will catch you next week. Thanks for listening to Hafeman Brothers Talking Packers.
Mr. Homie, did I treat you?